Feeling stuck in your self care routine despite focusing on sleep, nutrition, and exercise? What if these traditional methods aren't enough to fully recharge and renew your energy? Welcome to Self Care 101, where today we're diving into the uncharted territory of self care that goes beyond the basics. In this episode, we'll explore why traditional self care strategies might fall short and how you can uncover deeper, more effective practices to enhance your well being. So here's what we'll be covering today: understanding the limitations, why sleep, nutrition, and exercise alone might not solve all your self care challenges, exploring the 5 nourishment keys from my research, and we'll be discovering the essential elements you need to integrate into your routine for a more holistic approach to self care. And I'll be covering practical strategies, those 4 steps to get you there, where you can learn actionable tips and tools to address the gaps in your current self care plan. So, tune in to uncover the deeper layers of self care and start implementing strategies that go beyond the basics. It's time to elevate your self care game and truly thrive. Get ready to transform your self care routine. This episode is packed with valuable insights and practical advice you won't want to miss.
Morning sun rays rise up high. Feel the joy as time goes by. Take a breath, you're gonna fly. Every day a fresh new try. Self-care September, here we go. Energize, let your heart show. Burnout gone, let's start to flow. Every step a brand new glow.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here today, and I'm so thrilled that you're joining me. Welcome to the kickoff of Whittington Wellbeing's 3rd annual Self Care September. Today, we're diving into a crucial topic: creating a personalized self care plan that's tailored just for you. No more empty slapping cucumbers on your eyeballs, folks, or taking a spa day, or disconnecting from social media to try and get out of burnout or to feel better. I've got real tools, real strategies, real ways that you can do this today beyond the simple, beyond the subscribe nutrition, exercise, and rest, because those sometimes are the hardest things to get when we're already in burnout. So I think to set the stage, we got to kind of cover a couple of things that I think dive in a little bit more to where we are today. So, did you know, in a recent Fast Company article, it was reported that according to one survey, only 26% of workers used all their paid time off, their PTO. And according to another resource, 47% of people feel guilty if they don't work while on vacation. How many folks do we have in the audience today that might be guilty of working while you're on vacation? I know I have been guilty of that in the past. I will own it. So, those who don't take breaks are less productive and less engaged. They're also at a higher risk for burnout and other health issues and are less creative and innovative. So while employees in some companies routinely take 2 weeks, or hey, in Europe, it is not uncommon to take a month-long vacation. Well, the average US vacation is just 4 days long. That is nowhere near enough time to really unplug and recharge. In a Journal of Happiness Studies article, it can take at least 8 days. Let me repeat that. It can take at least 8 days for your brain to fully relax on vacation. So I'm going to ask, when was the last time you took at least 8 days to fully unplug and step away from work and life to just relax, recharge, and explore without an agenda? When was it? That's a tough one for a lot of us to answer. An 8+ day vacation may not be possible in your life right now. And hey, you wouldn't be alone. There are 7 other ways to rest and recharge where you are gaining the self care you need to be at your best. And I'll be covering many of these throughout the month of September with my expert guests. And you'll have the opportunity to join me along the way for several micro recharge lab sessions that will boost your battery in 20 minutes or less. So let's get started and dive right into today's topic. So, what is self care? This is a word that gets thrown around a whole lot without a lot of context. So, in her inspiring book, Enneagram Empowerment, Laura Miltenberger beautifully defines self care as the choice to be kind to yourself. This means embracing gentleness, kindness, compassion, and encouragement in our daily lives. Self care isn't just about doing things, it's about cultivating a joyful, pleasurable way of being. The goal? To bring more peace and energy into your life and relationships. I love that definition. Isn't it beautiful? So let's talk about the 5 nourishment keys. Now, these 5 nourishment keys that I'm going to be going over are the top 5 from my 3.5 year global research into burnout, specifically for neurodivergent and disabled adults. It's much like the canary in the coal mine, folks. So if you aren't neurodivergent or disabled, this will be more, if not equally, as empowering and powerful for you in your self care routine. I'm going to dive into these and I'm going to cover specifically what each of the 5 nourishment keys are to help you build a self care plan that works. So let's explore the top 5 nourishment keys. These are essential elements to incorporate into your routine to manage burnout and enhance well being. So I'm going to start with number 5. We're going to work in reverse order all the way up to the number 1. What's interesting about number 5 is that I approached the research from 2 perspectives. Number 1, I wanted to know from a conscious awareness perspective, what do you think are the things that are draining your energy most from this top 30 list? And 83.3% of research respondents in my study said, I do not have enough play, fun, or laughter in my life. That is why I'm so darn burned out. Well, what was really interesting is that number 1 response from the conscious awareness level turned out to be number 5 when we pressure tested it in how stress shows up in the body. So let's talk a little bit about this one. Play, fun, and laughter. So start by listing activities that bring joy and laughter. Schedule time for play in your routine and engage in hobbies that lighten your mood. Now, the reason I think this one's really powerful is it's the heavy, the hard, the tough stuff consistently without any levity, without any light or fun or play, that most likely got us into burnout in the first place. This is one of the biggest contributing factors. I mean, burnout doesn't feel light, it doesn't feel fun. And so the solution is the antithesis, right? So it's really important when we look at play, fun, and laughter. I'm just going to be real. When was the last time you played? I mean, there's a whole book on it. There's oodles of research on play and happiness, like fun, laughter, joy. When was the last time you played? That was a big question. At least it was for me in the very beginning when I started to put all of this together over a decade ago for myself. Because after I had spent almost 40 years in some degree of burnout, starting at the age of 6, which, by the way, is the on ramp for neurodivergent people to experience burnout. The on ramp actually begins at age 4 to 6, with the first burnout hitting between age 6 and 8 predominantly, and then on the outskirts, 8 to 10. So when was the last time you played? When I asked myself that question, it was sort of startling to really think about it, because it's like, I really haven't. I mean, I was a young child the last time I truly just laughed, giggled, like laughed so hard it like made my cheeks and my stomach hurt. Sure, occasionally I did that, but as an adult, I hadn't really played. I really hadn't had that fun and laughter, that levity. So there's some great places that you can just start to think about. When was the last time that you experienced that for starters? And then think about in the past, what have been activities that brought you joy and laughter? And then in your schedule, make this time, set this time, block it off. Now, it may seem like, well, play and laughter and joy is supposed to be spontaneous. Well, not if you're not making time for it, not if you're not prioritizing it. And a lot of times, too, this is just engaging in some hobbies that lighten your mood. You know, jump on a trampoline, go out there and play with the kids, roll in the grass with your dog. I'm serious. Just these are some playful, light, fun things that sometimes it is about making the conscious decision to just do it, to allow it in your life. And that really is one of the big things is making the decision and allowing it. So let's go to number 4, order, structure, and predictability. This was really interesting in my research when I asked about order, structure, and predictability. This was a really big one that kept coming up. And I think what happens so often in burnout is we get so overscheduled. And I've got a blog post coming out this week that's going to break this down a little bit more to help you guys. So I'm going to touch on it a little bit today and give you some tools. Fourth is order, structure, and predictability, because so often in burnout, we get these crammed, overscheduled calendars. And it feels like we have order, structure, and predictability, but truly it's an illusion. It's an illusion because those things are on our calendar, sometimes by default, not by our choosing or creation. So in this, it's important to create a daily or weekly schedule for order, to establish routines that provide some structure, because a lot of times we end up in this place of responding or reacting to everything that's happening around us, especially when stressors show up, because life will life, folks, as we know. And when we don't have a touch point, a set routine that is on our schedule, where this is the time that I do it first thing in the morning. For me, this is where a lot of my clients and people in the unveiling method, when they're going through Foundation Builder, this is usually like the big holy cow aha moment. I didn't realize how big of a difference this makes. And I'm not talking about an hour, y'all. I'm not talking about like the 5 a.m. club and getting up at 4:30 and doing a full hour of stuff. I'm talking about 20 minutes. I'm talking about 15. I'm talking about even 5 minutes of a set routine, ritual, a place that every morning it's predictable, because no matter what, in that 5 minutes or maybe 20 minutes, you are doing the things that set you up mentally, emotionally, and physically to be the best for the rest of your day. You can use planning tools that help you manage these tasks and responsibility throughout your day. But until you put this priority, that first thing that you do every day in your calendar, it's not going to happen and you won't feel the benefits, because this is truly one of those ripple effect moments. I found for me, now I will give you the simple dirty real quick. So for me, when I wake up in the morning, I do 2 main things. Number 1, I drink water. I keep a glass of water next to my bed because I'm really bad about hydrating. Let's take a hydration break, folks. Grab your cup. Ooh, that's so good. It's nice and cold. Yum. I love it. Nice, cold, clean water. So I just take a big sip of water first thing in the morning. I notice for me, because we dehydrate overnight, y'all. Did you know that when we go to sleep, we dehydrate? Because, we should be sleeping for long enough period that we start to dehydrate, most of us. And I don't know about y'all, but I cannot drink a ton of water before bed because I will be up all night long, not sleeping, going to the bathroom. So I tend to cut off my water intake a few hours before bed. So it's really important, first thing in the morning, that I drink water. So before I ever get out of bed, my feet do not hit the floor. I sit up on the side of the bed and I drink water. I take a couple of sips. Now, here's what I do that's a little different. I don't just drink water. I set the intention and I'm very intentional in this moment. I sense the water. I feel the water. I express gratitude for the water. I say, I am so thankful for this clean, clear, cool water that's nourishing my body and my cells right now. That's it. It takes seconds. The next thing that I do before my feet hit the floor, I'm just simply sat on the side of the bed, drank some water. Next thing I do is I take 3 deep breaths. There is an amazing thing that happens when you take those 3 deep breaths, and it can be any way you want it to be. It can be through your mouth, through your nose. You can even hold one nostril like this on either side. It is up to you. It's what feels good. This is about just playing with it, right? Having a little fun. Well, I'm just going to take 3 deep breaths. You can do it fast, you can do it slow, it does not matter. But what happens is you are oxygenating your body. You are telling your cells, I'm up, I'm ready to go. Because here's a little insight. For a lot of us, especially in burnout, number one, the first thing that happens is your sleep gets disrupted. And the longer your sleep is disrupted, well, your cortisol curve gets thrown out of whack. And I'll tell you, I go deep into this in the unveiling method, but I'm going to give you just the quick lowdown, the quick and dirty. Your cortisol level is supposed to be at its highest first thing in the morning, and cortisol gets a bad rap. You may have heard of it as the stress, fight, flight, freeze, fawn chemical, right? Well, it actually performs a very necessary function in our sleep wake cycle, and our cortisol level is supposed to be at the peak at its highest when we wake up so that we're energized. Well, taking those 3 deep breaths, number one, is oxygenating all of our cells, but it's also sending the message to make us alert, to get us waking up and going, because brain fog is real in burnout. So create a daily or weekly schedule for order. Start with that quick routine. It can just be those 2 quick things, some water and 3 breaths, right? So let's move on to number 3. I hope this is really helping you guys. These are some really powerful tools that I use. And these are what the unveilers are using every day in their life to get out of burnout and to stay out. Number 3 is authenticity with yourself and with others. This was the number 3 biggest energy drainer, biggest contributing factor to burnout. When people in my research reported, I don't feel like I'm my authentic self. And it wasn't just, I feel like I can be my authentic self with other people. It was, I feel like I know who I am within myself. I know who I am. So begin by identifying moments where you feel your true self. This may have been a place that you haven't experienced in a while, but think back to those moments when you have experienced those moments where you feel like your true self. They may just be these little small glimmers, and that's okay. That's where you can start. Another one is to practice honest communication. Now, in the 4 Agreements, I love this book by Don Miguel Ruiz, and here's my copy. The first agreement of the 4 Agreements is to be impeccable with your word. It's the first, and it's also the hardest. And when we're talking about practicing honest communication, I think, we all kind of default to thinking communicating with other people. I'm going to just stop you right there. You got to start by pure, honest communication with yourself first. And you have to be impeccable with your word to yourself. It's when you decide you're going to do something for yourself, you follow through with it. Because, as a reformed people pleaser and still recovering over here as a people pleaser, because it still comes up in New Level, New Devil, y'all, just saying. This is that place where it's really important that when we make these promises to ourselves that we honor them, because how often are we so willing to honor our word to someone else to our own detriment? Our own detriment. Yet we so easily forego, give up, and push aside the promise that we make to ourselves. The next one for here for authenticity and with yourself and others is engage in activities that allow you to express your true self. Now, I'm also going to add to this, not just to allow you to express your true self, but for a lot of us who are late identified, those of us who have had, decades of trauma and all those things that have created this people pleasing, I don't know who the heck I am, and I'm in like ghost pepper level 5 burnout. You may not have ever allowed space because it didn't feel safe for you to simply explore, to play, right? We'll go back to play, to discover what your authentic self is, who you really are. Try, a certain fashion out. Try certain words or phrases or language out in your life to see, hey, does this really fit me? Is this more authentic to me? I think it's really important that we begin to allow space to discover new things about who we are. Because who you are today isn't who you were yesterday, last week, 20 years ago. I mean, I feel like I've probably lived 20 different lifetimes as different people because we are always changing and evolving. All right, number two. Number two in my research that came up in the biggest contributing factors to burnout. And so, therefore, it is the thing that's going to help us get out of burnout. It's got some impact, it's got some power. It's belongingness. And it's not just, sort of like authenticity. It's not just belongingness with other people, finding our folks, finding our tribe, but it's also, I feel like I belong here in this body, in this place as me. So list out activities that foster a sense of belonging for you. How is that in relation with other people, right? What's an activity that you engage in with specific groups of other people or certain types of other people that make you feel like you belong? For me, finding my autistic ADHD community was amazing because I now have a group of people I can shorthand conversation with. And we know if we interrupt each other in my ADHD group, we're just like, That's just us. That's just our communication style." And we're okay with that. We don't have to apologize for it. We don't have to feel guilty about, interrupting each other. It's just sort of the flow, natural flow of our conversation. And we're all good with it. And I feel like I belong there. The other is activities that foster a sense of belonging for you within yourself, even in your own home space and environment. Connect with supportive communities or groups, but also make sure that you're taking time to connect with yourself. Put that on your calendar. Spend time reflecting on your sense of self and your connection with others. When is it that you feel most connected to who you are? And when do you feel most connected to who you are when you're with certain groups or certain other people, right? These are great places to get started. Number one in my research, this is such a great one. This is a really big impact area. And we've broken this down into really granular space. And I'm so excited to see you guys out there. Hey, my friend Edna's out there in the chat. Hey, Edna, I see you in the comments section. Oh my gosh, love seeing you all the time, my friend. Edna is a great, great Unveiler community member. So let's talk about internal emotional safety and self-trust. Why is this such a big part of our energy? And how does this contribute to burnout? What I found in my research when we pressure tested this it actually fell lower down the list. It was kind of like play, joy, and laughter when it flip flopped. So it was a little further down the list in people's conscious awareness. They were like, oh, yeah, I think emotional safety contributes to my burnout. But when we pressure tested it and we looked at how does emotional safety and the impact of not having it nourished, how does it show up in our body? This turned out to be number one. And it was really interesting because the biggest impact for emotional safety for those who are neurodivergent and disabled in burnout wasn't the external emotional safety like you might think. So that is, I feel safe to share my true feelings and emotions with other people. Where the biggest impact, the biggest drain showed up was internal emotional safety. And that was, I don't feel safe to feel my own emotions, my own feelings. And when I took this deeper in the interview section of the research, and we really kept digging, well, what does this emotional safety really look like? What's the root? What are the components to it? It came to another place that sort of ties with this, and that was self trust. And for so many of us who are late identified, or if you're early identified and all of the coping mechanisms and strategies and things that you learn by default when you're wired differently from maybe the majority of people around you, which, by the way, I think there's way more of us than there are them, y'all, just saying. But it's self-trust, and it comes from this layer of micro traumas, I think, in the sense that the world responded to us to say, you can't possibly be hurt by this. That light's not too bright. It doesn't bother anyone else. Why does it bother you? Or why are you crying? Your feelings can't be hurt. She said that to everybody and no one else got upset. No one else is bothered by it. Why are you? You're so sensitive. Quit wearing your heart on your sleeve. Right? Or why are you so excited? Tone it down. It's not that big a deal. Like, suppress your joy because you're making me uncomfortable. And no one else is responding the way you are. And that messaging, those experiences impact our self-trust. Because then we begin to think and feel and believe that we can't trust our own thoughts, our own ideas, our own experiences, our own emotions. And therefore, it then exacerbates this feeling that I am internally not safe with my own emotions. Or if you have, like me, I'm also alexithymic, but all these big emotions show up at one time, like multiple big emotions. I mean, they could be good, bad, or just neutral, but they're big. And my body, my nervous system notices that, but my mind can't quite process what they mean. So it doesn't feel safe. So I push them down. So to help with this, to self-care for this, start by recognizing situations where you feel emotionally safe, both externally and internally. Engage in self-affirmation and begin to trust your instincts in the sense that now this is a process. You just not going to immediately go, well, I'm just going to start trusting my instincts. In theory, that'd be great, but in practice, that just ain't how it happens, y'all. At least it hasn't for me. It hasn't for people that I work with. But to begin trusting your instincts, it goes back to that being impeccable with your word to yourself. And sometimes it's just, I will allow myself to feel whatever feelings I have, and I will allow myself to take the time that I need, no matter how long it is, to process these. And I don't have to know exactly what I'm feeling right now in this moment. And remember to engage in activities that build self trust for you. Begin to explore, is it that you maybe sit down and you start drawing? Maybe you start color coding. Maybe you use a feelings wheel. There's a lot of different ways that you can begin to step into self trust. And one of the things is just to simply say, I will allow myself to feel and respond however comes up for me. And I will not judge it against what someone else is feeling or thinking. Sometimes that's just the best place to start. So let's dive into this personalized self care plan that I have for y'all. It is 4 steps, and here we go. Are you ready? Now let's break this down. And in this 4 steps, we're going to start with step 1. And in step 1, we're going to assess your current self care practices or lack thereof, my friend. Can we just call it like it is sometimes? So reflect on your current habits and identify areas for improvement based on what we've talked about in these 5 key nourishment areas today for self care. Those 5 key nourishment areas that go beyond sleep, they go beyond exercise, they go beyond nutrition. These are the things that make the biggest impact in your energy every day. And yes, nutrition, yes, hydrating, yes, exercising, yes, those things make a difference. But there's other things that make a difference too, that have a greater impact in the big picture. So here's some ways that you can reflect on your current habits, because this is sometimes hard. So here's some tips. Number 1, look at your digital calendar or your paper calendar. Look at it for the last 30 days. Maybe back up and look for the last 3 months or 6 months. Just notice, what are you regularly doing on your calendar? And then just put some plus marks and minus marks. Put a plus mark next to the things that are energizing you, that you found made you feel good, that charged you up, that gave you some juice. And put a negative sign next to the things that you were exhausted, drained, or felt frustrated, or friction or resistance around. This is a good place to start bringing some awareness in. All right. So, number 2, step 2 is set your self care goals. Now, as a rule of thumb, I hate the word goals. I think it's been used to the nth degree and it makes my skin crawl in a lot of ways. Yet at the same time, I am like one of those high speed type A personalities. But I had to recognize that I had gotten that way and was super goal oriented because that was like my survival. Like if I could check all these things off the box and I achieved all these goals, then I was good and I was worthy and I'd earned it. And this is kind of slippery slope here. You don't have to check off a box and earn your self-care. Okay. So when I'm talking about setting your self-care goals, I'm just talking about we're just aligning the things that nourish you. Okay. We're just making note of it. We're going to define specific, achievable areas just for some things that you could put a plus sign next to based on those nourishment keys from those top 5 things. Write them down and keep them visible. So, from that top 5 nourishment list that we just went through, what's the one that stood out most to you, that feels the heaviest, that feels like I don't have enough of this in my life, or I don't have any of this in my life? And that's what I feel is going to really make me feel rested, feel recharged, feel energized. Start with that one. Step 3, here we go. Step 3 is to simply create your self-care routine. Now, we talked about just how you can start in the morning, water and 3 deep breaths, right? Any way you want to do it. But it's about allocating time for each nourishment key that's in your schedule and ensure a mix of different self-care activities. Now, guys, this is really where people get caught up in the trying to schedule and make these big chunks. I'm talking like 5 minutes. I'm talking 10, 20 minutes max. These do not have to be massive. They do not have to be expensive. You do not have to go anywhere for it. All 5 of those top nourishment keys, those things happen. Belongingness, authenticity. I mean, these are things that are just like little small shifts, right? But mix it up. Include this throughout your day. Sprinkle it in like the Lucky Charms cereal, marshmallows. I used to love that cereal. It's so good. Okay, the last step, step 4, it's to monitor and adjust. So regularly review your plan and make adjustments as need be to better meet your needs. This is about what you need. And the most important question that you can ask yourself throughout the day is, hey, what would nourish me right now? What will be light, fun, easy, playful, totally doable in like 5 minutes or less that would just nourish me right now? It could simply be standing up and walking outside, taking 3 deep breaths and coming back in. Just change your environment for just a couple of seconds. This is pretty simple. So let me give you an example real quick of just a quick self-care plan. So if we look at it from a daily routine, like morning, afternoon, evening, here we go. So for morning, practice like mindfulness or self-affirmation. And hey, I've got a tool for you when you register for the Self-Care September. I've got the self-care guide and it includes self-care affirmations. There's 9 different ones that you can choose from. Sometimes it's just having that quick frame to bring what's important back into focus. And that addresses the internal emotional safety. How you liking that? In the afternoon, connect with a community group or friends. Hey, it could just be having a cup of coffee. It could be, making it once, in the afternoon, you just check in with a group online, right? There you're addressing belonging. In the evening, it could be that you reflect and journal about your day where you don't color it. If it sucked, you just say, hey, this really sucked, or this really hurt my feelings, or this really energized me, or man, I got so stinking excited about this. That's where you can start bringing in authenticity. So let's look at it from a weekly routine standpoint. So let's just say maybe you identify Mondays is the day that you organize and planned your week ahead with intention. And, I'm going to be talking about this coming up in November. I'm going to be doing an energy appraisal workshop. And this is where you can address the addition and subtraction theory. And this is where you bring in order, structure, and predictability, because a lot of times there's stuff on your calendar. And I will guarantee you go look at your calendar right now, my friend. There's at least one thing on there that you should not be doing. It is not your responsibility. It should not be on your dang calendar, yet it's there. All right, so let's you take Wednesday. Maybe Wednesday is where you enjoy a fun hobby or activity. This is maybe you go bowling. Maybe you go with a walking group. Maybe you go crochet at the library with a fun group. Maybe you got book club. Maybe it's 30-minute lunch group. Maybe you go join a philanthropic organization like the Lions Club or, Kiwanis, something like that. Maybe you go have a lunch, and that's bringing in play, fun, and laughter, right? Something that's going to bring joy into your life. Maybe Friday looks like attending a social event or a gathering where you're creating a space for you to experience belonging. These are pretty quick, right? I mean, these aren't huge. This is just crafting with intention, being the leader in your life, living with intention and choice, and not by default. So let's talk about what's coming up this week in Self-Care September. So join me Wednesday for a conversation on self-care for pain and aging with my guest, Stanley Dietrich. Stanley is a postural alignment specialist and a brain health coach. And on Friday, we're going to dive into self-care and creativity for neurodivergent entrepreneurs with my guest, Rory Lemon. Rory will be sharing how to take your creativity and turn it into a business you love without burning out and more. I can't wait. I love Rory. He is so much fun. And Stanley is a wealth of knowledge. He shares some seriously granular tips, but stuff that's like, oh, I never thought of that. And that makes a difference in my pain. Holy cow, I'm on board, right? Now, to help you get started, I've created a Self-Care September checklist and a comprehensive self-care guide, which includes a list of 9 self-care affirmations. These affirmations are a great way to invite more positivity and lightness into your life. Remember, It's hard, heavy, and tough things that got us into burnout. So, approaching restoration through some light, fun, and playful ways is the fastest way out of burnout. It's not too late to register at whittingtonwellbeing.com. Hop on over, sign up real quick with your name and email, and you will receive the welcome email that gives you the full schedule and calendar of events for the month. You are going to get exclusive invitations for micro recharge lab sessions with me throughout the month, including some meditation, yoga, and some incredible other events that I have with some fun guests coming up. As we wrap up this first segment of our third annual Self Care September event, I want to remind you of your incredible brilliance. Embrace your uniqueness and know that your journey is one of strength and compassionate curiosity. I'm Carol Jean Whittington, and I'm so honored to be on this journey with you. Stay connected with me on LinkedIn. And for more energizing episodes, subscribe on one of your favorite podcast platforms or on my YouTube channel at Beyond Chronic Burnout. Let's continue thriving together. Remember, you have the power to break free from burnout and unleash your authentic self. Until our next engaging conversation, take care and keep shining brightly, my friends.
Thanks for being here. It's been quite a ride. Energy mastery, let's turn the tide. Top shelf guests, dropping wisdom bombs. Join us next week, where the energy's strong. Beyond chronic.